Did you know about 1 in 5 Americans making over $100,000 are still living paycheck to paycheck? That's according to the Bank of America Institute in 2024. Meanwhile, a separate 2024 study from NerdWallet found that most U.S. adults have less than $2,000 in emergency savings. It's not how much you make, but these 7 small money choices you're making today that decide your future wealth. Let's break down exactly what those choices look like, using real numbers you can check in your own life. First, let's tackle the myth that a high salary automatically equals wealth. It's a powerful idea, one that drives a lot of our career ambitions. We think, if I can just hit that 6-figure salary, all my money problems will disappear. But the data tells a very different story. A 2024 report from the Bank of America Institute revealed a shocking statistic. Roughly 20%, or 1 in 5, of all U.S. households earning over $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. Think about that for a moment. These are families and individuals in the top income brackets of the country. Yet they have the same financial anxiety as someone earning a fraction of that. They have no buffer. One unexpected job loss, one medical emergency, and their entire financial structure could collapse. Why does this happen? The answer isn't a mystery. It's a combination of high cost of living and a phenomenon called lifestyle creep. As your income rises, so do your expenses, often without you even noticing. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, more frequent dining out, expensive vacations. Each individual decision seems small, but together they expand to consume any additional income you earn. This is why a person earning $150,000 can feel just as broke as they did when they were earning $50,000. Their financial habits didn't evolve with their paycheck. They simply scaled up their spending. Now let's ground this in reality for the average American. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the third quarter of 2024, the median full-time salary in the United States is about $60,580 per year. At the same time, research from firms like Empower and data from the BLS show that the median cost of living for a single adult is somewhere between $32,000 and $40,000 a year. On paper, that leaves a healthy surplus of about $20,000 for savings, investing, and discretionary spending. But that's a national average. In a high-cost city, those numbers get skewed dramatically. The core lesson here is profound. Wealth isn't a function of your income. It's a function of the gap between your income and your expenses. It's about how much you keep, not how much you make. The daily choices you make about where your money goes are infinitely more powerful than the number on your annual W-2. Let's meet Marcus, a real example, not a statistic. Marcus is 33 years old, a project manager in a major U.S. city, and he's single. He's what most people would consider successful. He earns a salary of $105,000 a year. But let's look under the hood. His rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is $3,200 a month. His food costs, between groceries and dining out, run about $500 a month. Transportation, including his transit pass and occasional ride shares, is $240 a month. And his other expenses, including health insurance, student loan payments, and utilities, add up to another $570 a month. When you do the math, his fixed and essential expenses total $4,510 per month, or about $54,000 a year. That's before he buys a coffee, sees a movie, or goes on a date. After taxes, nearly all of his take-home pay is gone. Marcus's problem is that he has a big goal. He wants to buy a home. But with over 95% of his income going toward his current lifestyle, he can't save a single dollar for a down payment. He's trapped by his own success. So what does he do? He makes a few small, deliberate choices. First, he commits to tracking every single dollar he spends for 2 full weeks. No judgment, just data. He uses a simple app and discovers he's spending an extra $600 a month on lunches and dinners out with colleagues that he doesn't even enjoy that much. Second, he identifies that one category, dining out, as his target. He decides to cut that spending in half, brown bagging his lunch and suggesting cheaper alternatives for after-work gatherings. This frees up $300 a month. Third, and most importantly, he automates it. He sets up an automatic transfer of $400 a month. The $300 he saved, plus another $100 he found by canceling unused subscriptions, from his checking account to a separate savings account the day after he gets paid. The money is gone before he can spend it. The outcome? Within 1 year, Marcus builds his first ever emergency fund of over $5,000. He hasn't reached his down payment goal yet, but he's broken the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. He proved to himself that income alone isn't wealth. Control over his choices is. Drop a comment if your major expenses add up to more than 70% of your income. You're not alone, and it's the first step to making a change. Second, let's talk about the invisible trap. Lack of a real emergency fund. This is arguably the single greatest financial vulnerability for the majority of Americans. We often focus on big, exciting goals like retirement or investing in the stock market, but we ignore the very foundation upon which all of that is built: short-term financial stability. Without a safety net, any small gust of wind can knock over your entire financial house. A 2024 survey from NerdWallet laid this problem bare. Only 42% of Americans have at least $2,000 in emergency savings. This means the majority of the country, nearly 6 out of 10 people, could not handle a moderate financial shock without going into debt, selling assets, or asking for help. And the situation seems to be getting worse, not better. A 2024 report from Bankrate found that 73% of people report saving less for emergencies specifically because of inflation and changes to their income. The rising cost of everything, from groceries to gas, has squeezed household budgets so tightly that there's often nothing left to put aside. People aren't failing to save because they're irresponsible. They're failing to save because their financial margins have evaporated. Can you cover a $2,000 surprise expense right now? Most Americans can't. In the next couple of minutes, I'll show you a simple, automated way to change that. To really understand why a $2,000 buffer is so critical, you have to put it in the context of modern living costs. In a place like New York City, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment can easily be over $3,300 a month, according to data from Apartments.com. In that context, a $2,000 emergency fund doesn't even cover 1 month of rent. It might cover a major car repair, an urgent dental procedure, or an emergency flight to visit a sick family member. Without that fund, these common life events become full-blown financial crises. People are forced to put these expenses on high-interest credit cards, creating a debt spiral that can take years to escape. An emergency fund isn't about getting rich. It's about preventing poverty. It's the border that allows you to handle life's inevitable surprises without derailing your long-term goals. Let's look at Jasmine's story. Jasmine is 28. She's a nurse in a mid-sized city, and she has a lot on her plate. She earns a solid income of $68,000 a year, but she helps support her aging mother and is still paying off student loans. Her expenses are tight, but managed. $1,500 a month in rent, $450 for food, $110 for transport, and about $350 for health and other costs. That's roughly $29,000 a year. Her problem wasn't overspending. It was a lack of momentum. She'd never managed to keep more than $800 in her savings account at any given time. The constant worry of an unexpected bill hung over her. A $2,000 expense, like her car's transmission failing, would be a disaster. So she started with a choice so small, it felt almost insignificant. She logged into her payroll portal and set up an automatic deposit of just $80 from each paycheck to go directly into a separate savings account. It was about $160 a month. To make it work, she made a couple of temporary sacrifices. She started brown bagging her lunch to work 4 days a week and paused 3 streaming subscriptions she rarely used. She didn't check the account obsessively. She just let the automation do its work. The outcome? In just over 6 months, she looked at her account and saw over $2,000. For the first time in her adult life, she had a real safety net. The feeling wasn't excitement. It was relief. It was the peace of mind that comes from knowing you have a buffer between you and the chaos of the world. Third, here's how your savings might be quietly shrinking every year. You've done the hard work. You've controlled your spending, built up an emergency fund, and you have a few $1,000s sitting in a savings account at your big, familiar bank. You feel safe, but what you might not realize is that your money is losing value every single day. This isn't a scam. It's just the cold, hard math of interest rates versus inflation. According to the FDIC, in 2024, most standard savings accounts at the giant national banks, think Chase, Bank of America, pay an annual percentage yield, or APY, of just 0.01%. That is not a typo. 0.01%. If you have $10,000 in one of these accounts, you will earn exactly $1 in interest over an entire year. It's functionally zero. Your money is just sitting there, stagnant. Now, some people might think, so what? It's a savings account, not an investment. Its job is to be safe, not to grow. And that's partially true. But it ignores the other side of the equation. Inflation. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the annual inflation rate in the U.S. for 2024 was 3.4%. This means that on average, the cost of goods and services increased by 3.4%. So, if your money only grew by 0.01%, but the cost of everything else grew by 3.4%, your savings actually lost about 3.39% of their purchasing power. Your $10,000 can now only buy what $9,661 could buy a year ago. You're running on a financial treadmill, and the speed is set against you. The good news is there's a simple 5-minute fix for this. High-yield savings accounts, or HYSAs, typically offered by online banks, have rates that are dramatically better. The FDIC national average for these accounts in 2024 was between 0.45% and 0.47% APY. While that's still lower than the inflation rate, it's about 45 times better than what the big banks are offering. Moving your money is one of the easiest financial wins you can get. Let's do simple math. $12,000 in 0.01% versus 0.45% APY. This brings us to Kevin. Kevin is 41, works in IT support, is married with one child, and lives in a mid-tier American city. He's financially responsible. He earns $62,000 a year and has successfully saved up a $12,000 emergency fund. A fantastic accomplishment. But that money is sitting in a standard savings account at his local branch of a huge national bank, earning 0.01% APY. His problem is inertia. He knows the rate is bad, but switching seems like a hassle, and he trusts the bank he's been with for 20 years. One Saturday morning, he decides to time the process. He goes online and researches FDIC-insured high-yield savings accounts. He finds one with a 0.45% APY and a simple online application. The whole process, from application to initiating the transfer of his $12,000, takes him 15 minutes. Now, let's look at the outcome. In his old account, his $12,000 would have earned him a pathetic $1.20 in interest for the year. In his new high-yield account at 0.45% APY, he earns $54 in interest. It's not a fortune, but it's an extra $52.80 for 15 minutes of work. More importantly, he has slowed the rate at which inflation is eroding his savings. He made a simple choice that protects the value of his hard-earned money, with no extra risk and almost no effort. Fourth, how the average American is or isn't investing, and how to start the right way. Once you have your emergency fund established, the next step is to make your money work for you through long-term investing. For most middle-class Americans, the path to building wealth isn't through speculative stocks or crypto. It's through boring, consistent contributions to retirement accounts. The core vehicles are incredibly accessible. The 401k or 403b plan offered by your employer, an individual retirement arrangement or IRA that you open on your own, and a standard taxable brokerage account. According to a 2025 projection from the Investment Company Institute, over 76 million American households use these exact tools. This isn't some secret of the wealthy. It is the most well-trodden path to financial security in the country. The engine inside these accounts is typically a portfolio of mutual funds or index funds, which are simply baskets of stocks or bonds. One of the most common benchmarks for the U.S. stock market is the S&P 500 index, which represents the 500 largest public companies in America. Historically, its average annual return has been around 10.5%. This is the power of compounding growth. However, and this is the part that scares people away, that average is just an average. The reality is much more volatile. In the last few years alone, the annual return of the S&P 500 has swung wildly from a negative 5% in one year to a positive 27% in another. In a minute, you'll see the real-world returns and why slow and steady wins most often. This volatility is where behavior becomes more important than anything else. Seeing your account balance drop can be terrifying, and it leads people to make the biggest investment mistake, selling low out of fear, and then buying high out of a fear of missing out. The key is to ignore the noise. The most successful investors are not the ones who can predict the market, but the ones who can control their own emotions. The winning strategy is to automate your investments, choose low-cost, diversified funds, and simply stay the course for decades. Let's talk about Elena. Elena is 36, a teacher and a single parent living in a mid-sized city. She earns $58,000 a year. Her finances are stable, with her rent at $1,250 a month and other expenses well managed. She has a 403(b) plan available at her school, which is similar to a 401(k). Her problem is that she's discouraged. A few years ago, she got excited about investing and put some money into the market. But she got scared during a downturn and pulled it out. Then she watched as the market rallied, and she missed all the gains. Now she's paralyzed by the fear of making another wrong move. Her solution starts with accepting that she cannot time the market. First, she re-enrolled in her school's 403(b) plan. Instead of trying to pick individual stocks, she selected a single, simple, low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Second, she set up an automatic contribution of just $100 from every monthly paycheck. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was consistent. Third, she made a promise to herself to only check her portfolio balance once a year, focusing only on whether the fees were still low and her contributions were still happening, not on the market's performance. The outcome is that Elena is now slowly and steadily building her retirement savings. She's harnessing the power of compounding. Some years her balance will go down. Some years it will go up. But by consistently investing over the next 20 to 30 years, she is putting herself on a path to a secure retirement. All because she chose consistency over chasing trends. So let's bring it all together. We've covered a lot of ground, but the core message is simple. Your financial future is not determined by a lottery ticket or a sudden windfall. It's built brick by brick through a series of small, intentional choices you make every single day. Let's recap the most important takeaways. First, we learned that high income does not guarantee wealth. As the Bank of America Institute found in 2024, 1 in 5 high earners are still living paycheck to paycheck. Your habits and choices are what matter. Second, the single most important foundation for financial security is an emergency fund. With data from NerdWallet in 2024 showing that most Americans can't cover a $2,000 surprise, hitting that milestone is the critical first step away from financial fragility. And third, small optimizations make a huge difference over time. Whether it's moving your savings to a high-yield account to slow the damage from inflation, or setting up small automatic contributions to a retirement account, these consistent actions are what build real, lasting wealth. Here are the action steps you can take starting today. Your immediate step for this week: audit your last month of expenses. Don't judge, just track. Find one category where you can cut back and immediately set up an automatic transfer for that amount into a savings account. Make your choice real. Your short-term goal for the next 90 days: open an FDIC-insured high-yield savings account and fund your emergency fund. Your first target should be $1,000. Then aim for at least $2,000. This is your buffer against the world. And your long-term action: enroll in your workplace retirement plan like a 401(k) or 403(b). If you don't have one, open an IRA. Start with a small automatic contribution into a low-fee broad market index fund. Consistency here is more important than the amount. If this video opened your eyes to the power of small choices, hit that subscribe button for more data-backed American money guides. And please, Share this video with one person you know who still believes that a big salary is the only thing that matters. Finally, I've put together a simple 7-step checklist based on today's video to help you build these wealth habits. You can find that link in the description, along with our next video on how to maximize and invest your first $2,000. This video is for educational purposes only and is not personal financial advice. All figures are in US dollars. Product names and rates are for US accounts only. Data is sourced from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the FDIC, Bankrate, NerdWallet, the Investment Company Institute, and other cited reports, with all figures current as of late 2024. Please research carefully and consult a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.